Ditsawacha 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, now I think 41. British. Page 5, verse 41, I think. Right. For this system, yeah, it 41. For its sake, you have given away again and again over countless eons, sometimes your body, at other times, at others, your life, as well as your loving kin and resources of wealth. Right. So what this verse is saying is, for its sake means for its for the sake of the teaching of dependent origination, right? For the sake of the teaching of dependent origination, you have done. You have underwent many hardships, right? You have underwent many hardships, such as giving away your body, at others giving away your life, as well as your loving the kin, your dear ones, and resources of wealth. This is done not only for one time, not only done for one time or for one eon, but it is done for over a long period of time, right? That means for 3 countless eons, Buddha has been doing all these things in order to seek the meaning of the dependent origination, in order to cultivate the meaning of the dependent origination, in order to cultivate the wisdom of the dependent origination, right? So, like there is one bodhisattva called Bodhisattva ever crying. Bodhisattva ever crying, relied Bodhisattva ever crying in order to search for the ultimate truth, the wisdom of the ultimate truth. He also underwent a pretty great hardship, in order to search this. He went on to find the perfect and qualified the guide who can then teach this the wisdom of emptiness, or the perfection of wisdom sutra, right? Like this. So this is for the this is just for the means for seeking the dependent origination, right? The seeking the dependent origination. But then in some of the teachings, for example, like in many of the in many of the Mahayana teachings talks about pleasing the pleasing the enlightened beings, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then especially in the tantric teachings, Vajrayana teachings, a great emphasis is being placed relating to kind of respecting and how to say, respecting and also devoting to the qualified the Vajra master, right? And in this teachings, it talks about the need to please the Vajra master, the need to please the Vajra master in order to to cultivate, receive the blessing and to cultivate the spiritual attainments, right. For example, if you in one of the the tantric or Vajrayana text, Kala Chakra, in one of the Kala Chakra teaching, it says the same like here, offering all the resources, even one's body, the kin, all these things, right. But then what is the purpose, right? What is the purpose for doing all these things, right? So otherwise, sometimes people get confused, people get misunderstand, why we need to do all these things, right? So the very main purpose of doing such is such is not not in a the thing like we like we the teacher or the master is this offering the teaching, and then the listener make the offering, it's like exchanging, right? No, not not that way, right? So if we understand in that way, then we are wrong. We are then going to a different place. So this is not how we understand, but then because the main purpose is the main purpose of doing this is to see, to value the greatness of the teaching. This is the one of the main purpose, to value the greatness of the teaching, right? Because when we talk about this teaching, so when we talk about this teaching, this teaching, for example, like in Sakya tradition, there are 13 golden dharma, right? 13 golden dharma in which the teachings are being exchanged for gold. It is not that you give me the gold, I give you that teaching, not in exchange, right? Because but then if you try to find the intention, if you try to find the purpose, the purpose is just to we then come to understand that this is just for the purpose of the showing the greatness of the teaching. Because if he if you really try to look, many of the great, for example, we call Lotsavas, right? Lotsava means translators, interpreters, translators, interpreters. I think according to the great master Putin, there are almost 200 translators, right, in Tibet. Around that time, Tibet, the Buddhism flourished very, widely. 200 translators translated. So then, for example, around those time, like many, in ancient Tibet, in order to receive the teaching is not that easy, So, to make the one, get the teaching, a huge resources is being offered. So then some masters, what they do is they don't have to receive, they directly go to India, right? They directly go to the, around those times, maybe Nalanda, the most popular universities around those time, Nalanda University, and then there Vikramshila University, where the master Atisha came from that, and then there are some other, like in the place called Otanpuri, right? So the many great masters produce, Buddhist masters. So they directly go to this area, and then what do is they totally sacrifice their life. They totally in Tibet is a very cold climate. India is very hot, and then there is a lot of bandit, thief, right? And then the road is not good. India very hot, road not good, lot of thieves, right? And then lot of tax, you need to pay the tax when you go, through. So there are a lot of hardships being involved, So there is also, even then, wild animals, all these things, there is a real danger to one's life, to this, masters, Losaba's life. Then, for example, and then one time the great, the Marpa has 4 top, disciple, right? Ngochuku Doje, and then Melarepa, and Meten Shempo, and Surden Wangye. So these 4 disciples. So one of the disciple, so he was going to receive the initiation, maybe Charasamvara. Marba was going to give the Charasamvara initiation, right? So, Ngochuku Doji, he bought everything. He brought everything to offer to the Marba, right? Then he say on that day, then Ngochuku Doji, Chukudoji, I think. And then he said, I brought everything as a offering to receive the teaching, the initiation. Then, but I have only one thing which I left, I haven't bought. So I have one lamp. I have a lamp whose leg is broken. So this I cannot carry. Otherwise, I brought everything. Then Marba say, get that one. Then, without hesitation, he went Mokshodoje. Not a single doubt, right? So, and then Marba, tears come down. A tantric disciple should be like him, right? Someone who really obey what master say, right? So then he bought, this lamp, the Ngochuku Doji's, bag. So they hear, and then Marba say, tantric disciple should be, who is to be called tantric disciple? You are someone who is like tantric disciple. You are very suited, right? Something like this. And then, he accepted everything, right? But then, wonderfully, because as I said before, the master give the Vajra master give the teaching, and the student should offer something in the exchange of, not that way, right? But the main purpose is to show the greatness, because these masters sacrificed their life, right? Spent 100,000s of golds, right? Their body, they forsake their hardships, everything. So then later on, after a while, when the initiation and everything is given, everything is done, then Marba say, he returned back everything, right? So this one, he returned back everything. I don't need. I do all these things in order to show the greatness of the teaching, right? So he returned everything. I am an old person. I don't need anything, these things. So from the depth of the heart, the sincerity, right, come. So everything he got back. So not a single on the Vajra master side, not a single clinging, right? You don't need. But then this is the teaching, not the profundity. The teaching that, right? One again, the same look like same story. again the Ngokchuk Doji was coming to receive the teaching, right? Receive the teaching, and then the Marpa's wife, Marpa's wife sent Milarepa. Marpa's wife sent the Milarepa to ask Marpa to come and welcome this Ngokchuk Doji. And then Milarepa went, right, because he escaped from Marpa. So he escaped from Milarepa, escaped from Marpa. So he came to approach. Marpa was in a room, right. When Marpa was coming from the south, Marpa turned other opposite side, and from the east west. So you give out like this. Then he say, "Oh, the great master, right? The great master, something like the great master. Lamungpa is coming. Please, you come and welcome. Bring some as auspicious, bring some chang. Chang means wine, like wine, and then invite him." Marpa told him, "Nonsense, stupid." Right? What he is talking about? What you are talking about? When I came from India, let alone human being, not even the bird came to receive me. Right? I sacrificed my life to go to India. All the sacrifice my life. Even I collected thousands of gold. I forsake, and even my body, I went 3 times. Yeah, he visited 3 times. So, are you joking that I should go and invite? Yeah, it cannot be, it cannot be done, right? The teaching which is as dear as my heart, right? How can I give you? So it's something like this, right? Something like this. So all this, the main purpose is to show the greatness of the teaching, right? For example, again, when Buddha taught perfection of Wisdom Sutra, right? So there's no throne, right? So what he did is the yellow rope, right? Monk's yellow rope, he pile up, and then Buddha make the prostration, right? To this, something like this. So everything is, the teaching mainly done for the greatness of the teaching, right? Because if we were to receive the blessings of the Buddha, if we were to receive the blessings of the Bodhisattvas, enlightened beings, we cannot see these enlightened beings unless, in order to gain the direct vision of them, you need some degree of inner realization, so that you are able to see. Otherwise, so long as we create enough karma, right, we won't get access, right? So now, if they have to help us, it is, we don't expect, all of a sudden these enlightened masters, we pray for these enlightened masters, and all of this, they come and having add-on with 80 major signs and 32 major signs and 80 minor signs, they are coming, appearing, the rays of light coming. I don't think so. This is not the way, right? If they have to help us, only they can do is through the teaching, through the very teaching. Therefore, Buddha say, I cannot wash away your sin, right? Like taking a shower, right? Sentient beings suffering cannot be eliminated by hand blessing. My inner realization, I cannot transfer my inner realization in your, and they fix everything, all the problem. Buddha says there is no solution. And then it is that I teach the truth, the ultimate truth, that you are finally liberated from the suffering, from the shortcomings. This is one thing. Another way is Buddha say one is the protector of oneself and one is the enemy of oneself. Number 2. Number 3 is Buddha say, I taught you everything. I taught you all the path which leads to the permanent solution to the suffering. I show you all the the path which leads to the final bliss, but it is up to the individual. So Buddha to say all these things, So all this shows the greatness of the teaching, right? The greatness of the teaching. So through understanding this greatness of teaching, then we come to what happened, right? What really happens when we value the teaching, I mean, based on my own experience, for example, when I was in monastery, I have sometimes I have some text, sometimes I get some text which is very difficult, difficult. So the text, difficult to get, and also pay, because the text is rare, difficult to get, right? So what I get is, I value the text, and then even when I try to study the text, and then you really feel enjoy. I really feel enjoy, because I see the value, I see the value in the text, and then even I pay attention to each of the word, because the text is so precious, I think, right? So this one. So we then really develop a tremendous amount of value. If we develop a tremendous amount of value, then we wish to study, we wish to practice, we wish to reflect on the teaching. So that's the different, right? So this is all what they're saying, for its sake you have given away again and again over countless eons, sometimes your body, at others your life, as well as your loving kin and resources of wealth, right? So all this while Buddha was training on the path. Now when we try to we say the beginning path, the beginner's path. So the path of preparation, Mahayana path of preparation, and the accumulation is the beginner's path or the beginner path. Then we have the seven unpurified path, right? That is from the first ground to the seventh ground. All these are unpurified path. Then we have the last one, 8, 9, 10 ground, right? The spiritual path. These are purified. So in all this, while Buddha was going through all this training, spiritual training, he sometimes sacrifices the body, sometimes at other times his life, as well as his loving kins and resources, right? For this occurs repeatedly, right? Repeatedly for a long period of time. And then about this, we may wonder, there is no story, right? How Buddha underwent. But then these stories are being, if you look at the Ashwagosha, Ashwagosha's, Buddha's tale, the Buddha's tale about, in all the Buddha's previous lifetimes, he wrote one, Buddha's tale of Ashwagosha, and also many of the sutra, many of the sutra, all these, how Buddha underwent these hardships are very clearly explained, right? Ashwagosha is in his early part of life is a non-Buddhist, great logician, the great scholar, great logician. Ashwagosha, he was, so because in olden times, when they debate, when the Buddhists and the non-Buddhists they debate at the cost, by staking the Buddha's teaching, because if the opponent defeated, they need to convert, right? Including the king. If the Buddhists defeated, they need to convert. to non-Buddhists. Something like this, they debate very, So, in the olden times, this happened, right? Even if you buy that, even if you write the text, it is not easy. You need to get approved from the panditas. Panditas means something like scholars, great scholars. So then in Nalanda, what they do is, if you write the poetry, difficult to get approved, right? So the line of scholars here, another scholars, so they check. Once you are done with the composition, they check. So for example, like the great master Dignak, not Dignak, Dharmakiti's work, he is called Dharmakiti's work. It's all about logic, logic, and also, so he wrote this text. So then he passed to check all the panditas. So pandita, do they check, so they put all the mark. Or later on, when he got the text, all these are marked with red. That means it's wrong. Then Dharmakiti was Dharmakiti then laugh, So what they do is, because this text composition is not worthy text, so what they do is, this text they tie on the dog's tail, and then dogs run away, right? Then Dharmakiti say, just as dogs run in all the directions, my teaching will spread in all the directions. Right. So something like this. And then
did he debate with the Panditas?
Huh?
Did he then debate with the Panditas?
Mostly, debated with non-Buddhists, because the non-Buddhists, even around that time, I mean, talking about the ancient Indian tradition, some are they're very the logic very deep, very profound. Even in some cases, for example, Shankaracharya first debated with Dharmakiti. Shankaracharya defeated. He fell into he jumped into the Ganga river. Again he reincarnated. Again second time, again jumped, defeated. Again third time. Even at third time, he become more, sharp. Mind become more sharp. Even at some time, he is possessed by his own, God, possessed by his own, personal deity or God, right? And then directly teaching him the logic, very subtle logic. But every time, Dharmakiti cannot be defeated, right?
Which text was it the Panditas put on the dog's tail?
Yeah, this Samanamda, we called Pramana Varikartika, Pramana Vartikarika, right? So this text, and then in that text, and then he wrote, Kyu Bhajapala Chashi. That means, most beings are inclined to the mundane concerns only. They lack intellectual understanding, intellectual wisdom, and not only that, filled with jealousy, they envious, right? So, for this, I have no intention to benefit. I wrote this text only to familiarize with my mind. No wish to benefit. Yeah, directly he said, I have no wish to benefit, right? Also, if you look at the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, in the first chapter, in the beginning of the first chapter, also Chandideva, say, I am not good at 5, arts of learning, many arts of field. I have composed this text to familiarize with my mind. No wish to benefit. Directly, but then indirectly, those whose merit is equivalent to mine, may it serve as a benefit for them. May this teaching really serve as some kind of light for them to wake up from the darkness of ignorance. Right. So something like this. So we are talking about the greatness of the teaching, right? As well as your loving kin and resources of wealth. Seeing the qualities of this teaching pulls heart from your heart, just like what a hook does to a fish. Sad it is not to have heard it from you. Now what this is saying, right? Seeing the qualities of this teaching. Qualities of this teaching, right? That means seeing. What is seeing? What is seeing? What is the one that sees the qualities of the seeing, qualities of the teaching? What kind of quality, right? What teaching, and what kind of teaching, and what kind of teaching, and what is the quality of that kind of teaching, right? The teaching is, right, we already discussed the teaching of dependent origination, that you have searched, that you have sought with a great hardship for a long period of time. So this kind of teaching, so now this kind of teaching, right? But then what is the quality of that teaching? What is the quality of that teaching? Now we are talking about the qualities of the dependent origination teaching. What is the quality of the dependent origination teaching? Right. Now what is the main quality, right? We already, I think, you should have definitely some idea about the quality, because we have been all the teaching about the praising, the unique, the greatness of the dependent origination teaching. Now what are the qualities, right? The teaching is dependent origination, and then you need to specify the quality of that dependent origination teaching. What unique quality is there in the dependent origination teaching?
Verse 40. Verse 40 summarize. Verse 40 summarize the qualities. The unique features from what we studied is, first is a pacification of all sufferings, overcome all delusions, and leading to eternal joy and peace.
Oh yeah, this one, right? The mainly to destroy the imprints, even the imprints of the afflictions, the imprints of the grasping, to destroy the grasping, to be able to destroy the imprints of the grasping is the quality of the dependent origination teaching, right? So, right now this quality, it says, seeing. Who is seeing? Who is seeing that quality? Who is the seer? Who is seeing and who is the seer of that quality?
Here is Lama Tsongkhapa.
Huh?
In here, Lama Tsongkhapa.
Sure?
Who understands the teaching?
Now here, now you see, it's very see. The seer is no, the stainless reason. The stainless reason. The wisdom of the stainless reason is the seer. The wisdom of the stainless reason, the wisdom of the stainless reason sees that the dependent origination having the qualities of removing all the degenerations, having all the shortcomings, the downfalls, right? So it is the dependent, the wisdom of the dependent origination, the wisdom of the stainless reason. Now, how do the wisdom of the stainless reason, see that the dependent origination as having the qualities to remove all the suffering, to all the delusions. Right? How? You use we use a common experience, common sense. When the light is on, darkness is dispelled. Right? When there is now, for example, just if you take the simple example, right? Few weeks ago, couple of weeks ago, there was a very strong, very high degree fire, high temperature fire, very fire whose temperature is so powerful. When the temperature of the fire is at its peak, the highest, for example, 100 agra is burning. If you try to put a bucket full of water, can you extinguish the fire?
No.
Why?
Because the fire is too strong.
That's it, right? So similarly, work same here, internal thing. When the wisdom is so powerful, our wisdom is so powerful. What kind of wisdom? The wisdom seeing that nothing exists substantially, nothing exists from its own side. This kind of wisdom. So this is the wisdom of dependent origination. The wisdom of dependent origination, or the wisdom of the emptiness, by using the dependent origination as the basis. So this wisdom is cultivated, the wisdom understanding emptiness, the wisdom perceiving emptiness, by using the dependent origination as a basis. So this wisdom is cultivated. So this wisdom sees that nothing exists independently. Nothing can be found from the object side. On the other hand, grasping, we call grasping, right? Grasping ignorance. Ignorance belief in what? Ignorance belief that things exist from its own side. So these are opposite. Grasping, the grasping and the which believe things to be true existence, the wisdom which does not believe things to be true existence, opposing force. So when one, right now at the beginner level, when the ignorance or grasping is so strong, the wisdom less powerful. But then through training, when the wisdom becomes so powerful, the function of the ignorance or grasping becomes so weak. that it cannot manifest. Right? Two opposing force, mental state cannot occur simultaneously because they are opposing force. So this is what is saying, seeing the qualities of this teaching, right? So external and internal. For example, interestingly, when we try to prove, now the question is, can we bring an end to the suffering? Right? Can we bring an end to the suffering? Can we really remove the suffering? Can we really remove the delusion? So this is the question. Can we totally, eradicate the anger, the hostility, the attachment, and so forth, forever, in a non-returnable way? Can we do that? This is the question. Now we say, sometimes we are not sure, right? Sometimes we are not sure. But how do we prove? How do we know? Is there any good reason to say that finally all our delusions, all our destructive emotions, harmful emotions, right, unhealthy emotions can be totally undo, can be totally uproot, destroyed? Why? How do we know? At one point of time, we are totally in a state of eternal peace, eternal blissful state experience. We experience the fullest potential joy, right? But how do we know that we will achieve if we go through the right training, right?
12-link dependent origination.
So this is very important. This thing very important. How do we say?
With the 12-link dependent origination, we can prove.
we right now discuss, right? That's it. Right. Now use our common sense, right? Use our common sense. For example, I have one person, normally, the moment I saw that person, I feel unhappy, for example, it's like somebody whom you don't like, right? It's like that person gives you a hard time, give you a lot of difficult time, right? So that person, first of all, all the time we both are unhappy, right? When he sees me, I'm very unhappy. When he sees me, also unhappy, right? So first, at that point, I have not cultivated love for that person. I have only in my mind, I have anger, hostility, aversion, right? So therefore, I get unhappy. I become unhappy. But then, as soon as I begin to train in love and compassion, right? Then my perception is changed. My earlier perception is totally changed. Then I try to see that person as something nice, loving, right? So then, at one point of time, when the strength of the love and the compassion is so powerful, the strength of the hatred is very weak, right? So then, while the love and the compassion is manifested, there is simply no room that the hatred, the aversion, anger can manifest at the same time. Because when we talk about the hatred, on the other hand, when we talk about the love, the love which focus on the one object and the hatred which focus on the same object. So by focusing two different mental states, focusing on the same object, one is believing that person to be the unattractive, other believing that person to be attractive, is totally opposite. Right. So the moment two different opposing force, mental state, when one arise, another weaken. So this is how the mind functions. Mind operates, different mental states operates, right? So therefore, when we talk about can we bring an end to the suffering, can we totally remove the suffering from the root, and in such a state where we can enjoy the fullest joy, fullest the potential, then we say yes, right, based on, because now say example, grasping attachment, something like desire, hatred, the kind of jealousy, all these mental states are destructive mental states. These can finally be brought into end. Why? Because they do have very powerful opponent, powerful opposing force. For example, in the case of the hatred, there's a love, right? In the case of the permanent, believing in the permanent things to be permanent, there is a meditation on the impurity, the unpleasant nature of the things, right? And in the case of ignorance, there is a powerful, wisdom, powerful wisdom. So this wisdom, in the beginning level, we need effort. This will not, come spontaneous. They really need effort. But the uniqueness of the positive mental thoughts, the positive emotions are such that as you trained, the more we get used to it, it becomes more spontaneous, that you don't have to rely on the new effort. It becomes something spontaneous. You don't need to rely. Whereas in the physical exercises, for example, in the sport, when we train at the sport, the football or the basketball, all these things, volleyball, long jump, high jump, right, marathon. There are so many things, right? One needs training, physical exercise, physical training. But then physical training has limitation. Definitely, physical training has limitation. No matter how much one goes through training, there is certain degree of limitations. Because physical training depends on the effort. Effort cannot become something spontaneous, so effortless cannot become effortless, right? Whereas when we talk about positive mental thoughts, it becomes effortless. How do we know effortless? This very this is also one of the one of the great Tibetan master. He used the attachment as a logic, especially the master used the lust as an example. All these things, right? Because in the first nothing, but then in some cases people torture themselves, inflicting harm upon themselves. Why do this happen? Right? To train in a negative way. If through training negative emotions, destructive emotions, through training, if can enhance at certain limited stage, of course positive emotions definitely can enhance to the limitless stage. So that's the basis. So this very reason prove that we can achieve liberation, we can bring an end to suffering. Right? So Buddhism is all, there's a beauty, some right, some they see that there is a misery in the suffering, some they see kind of negative in the suffering, but then at the same time that one can also make seeing the beauty in the suffering rather than rejecting the suffering, right? Because in the foundational teaching, in the very foundational teaching, this is suffering, all this the nature of suffering, something like this, right? So into some point, at some stage, people feel a little bit discouraged, but there's no if we really know how to look at the things, these are not for suffering, these are for transformation, right? Because without suffering there is no renunciation. Without suffering you don't know how to enjoy the life. We go a little deeper, right? Deeper. That's why as Shantideva say, there are many qualities of the suffering. There's many qualities of the suffering. It dispels the sense of arrogance, number one. You develop a sense of renunciation. You develop a sense of compassion towards those suffering sentient beings, right? So by reflecting upon this, so this I repeat few times, very important. By reflecting upon the suffering of yourself, how much you are suffering, how much you are tormented by suffering, the suffering, 8 types of suffering, 6 types of suffering, and especially the 3 types of suffering. When we talk about the 3 types of suffering, there are suffering was suffering, the suffering of changeable suffering, which we can understand. But when it comes to the 3rd level of suffering, which is the conditioning suffering, pervasive suffering, this is a much more deeper level of suffering. So this suffering, how much we are tormented by this kind of suffering, based on your own experience of suffering, you extend that degree of suffering to other sentient beings and then wish to free their suffering. So this is compassion, the universal compassion, infinite compassion, unconditional compassion, right? So this is compassion. This is how we develop, right? So there's a right? So by reflecting on your suffering, how much it gives yourself, for yourself, it gives you the sense of renunciation, right? There is, if you try to really look, if you try to really look, sometime there's a danger, right? There's a danger that a lot of negative emotions involved, right? There's sense of, for example, like competitiveness, there's a kind of the envious or some kind of jealousy, right? So if we really think about the pervasive suffering, there is simply no room for the arisal of destructive emotions. One really feels sense of sense of renunciation. This pretty help. This really pretty help in some way, right? Something like this. Position, realization, then because we all know all the suffering comes from where? All the happiness come from where?
Cherishing others.
Huh?
All the happiness from cherishing others more than oneself.
All the suffering comes from?
Cherishing oneself more than others.
Right. So, in total, all the happiness comes from cherishing others, all the suffering comes from cherishing oneself. But it's easy to say, putting in the practice a little bit, we need to make effort, right. Cherishing others, and then self-cherishing. So, but then, if we try to understand that all the suffering arises from cherishing oneself, so then then we want to shift, so if the suffering comes from cherishing oneself, if the happiness comes from cherishing other, if the happiness arises from cherishing other, right, then we make each and every effort to cherish others more than cherishing oneself, because cherishing others is the root of the happiness. So there is nobody who does not want happiness. So if somebody aspires to achieve happiness, so the method is cherishing others more than cherishing oneself, right. So also this is the method for weakening, lessening one's own suffering, right. Then so about these things, this also relates to the mind training, mind transformation. Sometime right now here, based on mind training, right, based on the cherishing others, based on the mind training of cherishing others, right. Now we practice what? We practice giving love. We practice giving love. We practice giving what? We practice giving compassion. Giving love, giving compassion, giving joy, right. Now if we practice in giving love, right, we say we get happiness. How do we get happiness? We need to use the logic to prove all these things, right. Otherwise, if you try to prove, then we really want to do something, right. If without proof, sometimes people feel, oh, this is a religious matter. If you try to prove through common sense, then right, we want to do something, because this is for one's own self-interest, one's own interest. So how do we prove? By cultivating love, we get happiness. By cultivating compassion, we get happiness. Much of our suffering is reduced. How do we know? How do we know? By cultivating love and compassion, many of our sufferings are reduced, and then many of the one's life becomes much happier. How do we prove through? We don't say, oh, saying in this text, this saying, that text is saying, not that way. We prove through reason, logic. Come on. So then when you try to explain to others, when we talk about, sometimes we talk about universal value, right? the importance of the secular ethics, right? Universal value. We talk about, oh, these things should be taught from the kindergarten to the university level, right? We call it, secular ethics, or whatever we call it, the human values or secular values, whatever we call. But then when we try to teach to others, we don't say, oh, this text is saying this is, this works for some people, but not all. Those who have no interest in those who do not believe in religion, what they are called? What are they? Anti-God, ethics, atheists. So those atheists, no value. The religion, when they talk about no interest, right? Now, but they deserve love and compassion. They do deserve a good quality life, right? So you need to also try to help them. How you are going to help them? You don't say, oh, Buddha is saying this, oh, Jesus Christ is saying this, Muhammad is saying this. You cannot use this logic. Now prove the reason, logic. If you try to use the scriptural quotation, then they believe, oh, boring. Right? These are religious matters. To some extent, the experience tells us, right? But then the experience tells us, also then, the main is through reason. I think through reason, through logical reason. Now? So it is very important to know the emotions. The function of the emotions. What is the when we talk about love, what that love meant. When we talk about compassion, what is the compassion, right? I never talk about compassion, love. But then what is the nature of the love? What is the nature of the compassion? What is the nature of the joy? So this is important to know. It's simple, right? When we become upset, when we get angry, when we upset, we are unhappy. Right? Are there any person who says, I am happy because I get angry? No. Nobody is saying this, right? And so also, to some extent, the common sense tells us, right? For example, in the case of those ladies, they do makeup. Why they do their makeup? Right? To look good, right? To look good. This is a common sense. On the other hand, if they lose the temper, you have all the makeup all spoiled. This common sense. And everybody loves the smiling face. Nobody loves it. Very serious. Even there's one store. The owner of that store all the time remains serious. I think no customer come. Right. So all these are common sense, based on the reality that everybody is a social animal. So when we talk about socialize, right? Socialize done through, in a smooth way, not in a rough, right? Something like this. So when we talk about, now for example, love, right? We give love to other. How we are going to give love to other, right? So, for example, we say, oh, cherish others more than yourself. Just as you cherish yourself, you also do the cherish others more than cherishing yourself. But then how we are going to cherish, right? Because
Then if you try to do too extreme, then you would feel the problem. So in the skillful way, then we say, now there are different ways that you can cherish others. No, love, give love, give love, give joy, give compassion, give equanimity, right? Something like this. Now, how do we going to give love to others? Huh?
Make others happy and have happiness. Make others have happiness. Long-lasting happiness. Temporarily and long-lasting happiness. Both.
The wishing, the love, that means, the wishing to give, happiness. It's your mental state. It's the mental state. The wishing to give happiness and happiness to others. So this is the mental state. Right. Now, the very important thing is that just by cultivating this mental state, right, by cultivating this mental state, can we really help the person enjoy happiness?
No.
Right. No, right.
No.
If no, then why you do this? Why you do this? If by cultivating within your mind as a love, a compassion to others, if it really cannot fulfill others' well-being, welfare, why you do this? Why are we doing this? Huh?
I think there are two reasons. One is for one's own benefit. Oneself accumulate merits and the mind power increases.
Right.
On the other hand, is in terms regarding to others, every action starts from the mind. But when you have this mind, I want to give happiness, then one will start doing actions to actually leads to doing actions to help others.
But then you say it fulfill your own well-being, right? How it fulfill? So this need to think, and then we really want to do something, right? How?
First, it works against one's self-cherishing mind, so it reduces one's own self-grasping, and on one hand through this practice of wishing other people having happiness.
So it's something like this, because we all believe all the suffering arises from self-cherishing, right? Self-cherishing. So when we say cherish others involve what? Involve also giving love, they giving compassion to others. So that means when we cultivate compassion, when we cultivate love, this by cultivating the love and compassion cannot guarantee that you can fulfill the well-being of others, but for the practitioner you enjoy the fullest benefit, because just now we, for example, we visualize I am giving love to somebody, right, or somebody who is suffering. If you give love, you are in a happy frame of mind. Oneself is in the happy frame of mind, right? Happy frame of mind. And then it also what? It also encourages you. There is no sense of weakness. There is a sense of strength. There is a strength, right? So the first benefit go to the practitioner. You cannot guarantee by doing this action it can bring help to others, but the practitioner gets the maximum benefit, right? So this is one of the if you try to look at the many of the mind training practices, sometimes you are really you feel, wonder, how is it possible, right? How is it possible? Some of the seems unrealistic, some of the mind training practices, even some prayers, in the form of prayers, some really seem unrealistic. For example, right, in just simple, in the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, as long as space remain, as long as sentient being remain, I will remain to dispel the misery of the world, to dispel the suffering of the world. But in reality, can you do this? Are you able to do this? To remove all the suffering only by yourself? In reality, it happen? No, right? If it in reality, if it does not happen, then why you do this? Now, the secret to this is that if right now, many of perceptions, we are engrossed in our own, perceptions. So therefore, sometimes we a little bit feel difficulty in doing this practice. But then, if however, if we are really get some sense, some flavor of this, one's own personal problem is gone. So this is the secret. It gives you tremendous amount of determination, encouraging mental state. The joy, there's a sense of joy, there's a sense of courageous upliftment of one's mind. You see, so this is the secret, because you need to serve others. We need to work for the welfare of others. If we were to work for the welfare of others, we need the inner strength. So inner strength can be derived through visualization, transformation, right? Imagination. So these prayers are in the form of imagination. So it brings benefit for uplifting one's mind, for encouraging one's mind. One becomes stronger in working for the well-being of others, right? Giving love, giving compassion, giving joy, all these are based on cherishing others, right? So when this gain strength, when this gains strength, what happens? When this gains strength, happiness is created, mental joy. When I say mental joy, I'm not talking about sensorial pleasure. I'm talking about the mental joy, mental happiness. One need to make the difference between the mental joy and the mental joy and the sensorial pleasure. Sensorial pleasure are mainly accumulated or earned through external facilities which we require. We need all these things, but we don't believe these are the lasting peace. These are the lasting solution, right? So there is much more deeper. So when we talk about the pleasure and joy, then it's the mental pleasure and the mental joy which can influence the external, which can influence the sensorial displeasure also, right? So that's why some people are very sick, right? Some people are having some chronic disease, but still we see some people keeping a very calm mind, even in a very tragic situation. Why this happen? Right? So this is mind important. It's the mind. The controller is the mind control, right? See, some have the best of the facilities, the wonderful facilities. You don't have to worry about the job, worry about the house, worry about anything. When it comes to financial situation, economic situation, you don't have to worry about anything, but still the person remain unhappy. Why? Right? So like this. So mental suffering can overwhelm it, the physical pleasurable experiences at sensorial level. Similarly, the mental happiness can subdue the physical pain, those pain related at sensorial level. So mental emotions, much of the we call the quality of the life, right, depends on how how we look at the things, right. So therefore Buddhist talking about emotions becomes so relevant in the today's world, because we externally we are highly developed, there's no need to say, but then at the same time there's an issue also called emotional crisis. Emotional crisis, all this happen, right, something like this. So then when these positive emotions increases, the strength increases, then we also create joy and happiness. At the same time, suffering is reduced. Because why suffering is reduced is because self-cherishing attitude is reduced. All the suffering comes from self-cherishing attitude, self-cherishing thought. So when these positive emotions increases, the opposing force such as self-cherishing thought reduced. When the self-cherishing thought reduced, then one's own a kind of life, something like low self-esteem, right, low self-esteem, and then depression, all this stress, right, a sense of loneliness, all these are gone, easily gone. These things are easily gone. Seeing the qualities of this teaching pulls hard from your heart. So by seeing these qualities, that the wisdom of divine origination, having all the qualities to remove the stains, even remove the imprints of the afflictions, pulls hard. It is like pulling hard from your heart. When the hook, when you use the hook to draw the fish is drawn by the hook, right? So Buddha's mind is impressed, Buddha's mind is fascinated by that kind of teaching. What kind of teaching? The teaching of dependent origination, which you have sought for a very long time through such a great hardship. This teaching make your mind so impressed and fascinated, right? Just like the hook of the fish. When the hook brought the fish, bringing back the fish, right? So sad, right? So your mind is so fascinated, your mind is made so fascinated by this, the profundity and the beauty of this dependent origination teaching, right? But sad, it is not to have heard it from you, but alas, there's something like alas, sad. Such a wonderful teaching, such a beauty of the teaching of dependent origination, which you have, which you have sought for a long period of time, forsaking your health, forsaking your body, your life, your kin, all the resources. This kind of, the beauty of the teaching, I feel sad to have not heard from you. This, I believe, I am unfortunate to some extent. So this is the verse 42. Sad it is not to have heard it from you, this wonderful teaching. I haven't heard it from you. So I feel unfortunate to have not been able to receive this wonderful teaching from you, right? Then number 43. Okay. Now what number 43 is saying, the intensity of that sorrow does not let go of my mind, just like the mind of a mother constantly goes after her dear child. Now, right now, verse 43, what is this saying? Now, so there's such a kind of intensity in my mind. There's some kind of the sorrow in my mind. The intensity of that sorrow is so deep, right? It's so deep that it does not let my mind go. It does not let go of my mind. Because why it does not let go of my mind is because my mind is so my mind is filled with sorrow. The intensity of the sorrow is so powerful that it won't let go of my mind easily. Just like now the example is, just like the mind of a mother constantly goes after her dear child. Now, for example, the mother, the mother has some very beloved child. That beloved, her beloved child passed away, right? So her mind is so tormented by such a the feeling of sadness, the feeling of sorrow. The mother is going through a kind of despair, tormented by the feeling of sorrow of her beloved child being dead. Her child, her mind is not ready to live, it's not ready to let go of, because her mind chase after her beloved child, run after her beloved child. So this is what it means, verse 43, showing the intensity sorrow to have not been able to hear the teaching of divine origination directly from Buddha Shakyamuni. Then verse 44 to 45, right? Here too, as I reflect on your words, I think, blazing with the glory of noble marks and hallowed in a net of light rays, this teacher, in a voice of pristine melody, spoke thus in such a way, the instant such a reflection of the sage form appears in my mind, it soothes me, just as the moon rays heal fever's pain. Chizongkapa is very poetry, very high standard poetry. High standard poetry. He's a great poet. For example, I think in the English literature, I think the same. In the English literature, there's some they write the kind of how to say poem. The poem write in the verse form, and on the other hand, there are some, for example, if you have to explain something, right? If you have to explain something, then not in a verse form, but in a sentence, right? There are two different kinds. So Tsongkhapa has two foremost spiritual sons, chief spiritual sons. His elder one is what we call as elder, and the younger one. The elder one is Gezab, right? Gezab Dharma Rinje, and the younger is Kyutup Gelepesang. Kyutup Gelepesang. So when it comes to the writing poetry in verse, Kitubje is very excellent, but I am citing the master's this saying. So Gezabje is very good at loose the sentence, right? But then Jetsongkhapa is very excellent in both, whether it is in writing the loose or sentence, or whether you are going to write in a verse form. Jetsongkhapa is truly marvelous, right? So he is very good at this. So in some part he is using his poetry, the beauty of the poetry appears in our mind. It soothes me just as the moon rays heal fever's pain. Right? Very melody. So what it is saying, what this verse is saying here too, as now the question is being raised. Here at this point the question is being raised. Jetsongkhapa says, my heart is tormented with the pain of not being able to receive the teaching of the beauty of the divine origination directly from you, right? So he feels pain. But then were there any solution to remove that pain? Now these words come into being, right? Here too, as I reflect on your words, I think blazing with the glory of noble marks. Now here, but then there is I am filled with I am filled with a deep sad to have been able to not be able to heard the teaching of dependent origination, the beauty of the divine origination directly from you. However, on the other hand, when I really try to think about the teaching of the divine origination, the meaning of the divine origination, right? The teaching of divine origination, the meaning of the dependent origination, the vast teaching, and then what happened is blazing with the glory of noble marks. Your body. When I think about the teaching of your dependent origination, then you are someone whose body is adorned with 32 major signs and 8 minor signs, right? So this, and then your mind is endowed with the quality of knowing and the quality of what? Love. So now this shows the Buddha is you have the quality of the physical quality, and you have the quality of the mind. So these two shows Buddha is a reliable, and Buddha is the reliable protector, reliable savior for those who are seeking to achieve the eternal joy and peace, liberation, right? Eternal peace and joy. Now here, right? So this savior, this refuge, ultimate refuge and ultimate savior, this ultimate savior and ultimate refuge, and hallowed in a net of light rays. So he is surrounded, light rays emanating from his major signs and minor signs of his body. The light rays emanate. This teacher, right, the one who is the savior, the one who is the ultimate refuge, this teacher, right, in a voice of pristine melody. So this teacher now spoke what? This teacher spoke the dependent origination. This teacher spoke the dependent origination in the form of the perfection of wisdom sutras. He taught the wisdom of divine origination in the form of wisdom sutras with the 60 melody voices, right? 60 melody voices, because Buddha, has very beautiful voice. He say there are 100 people, right? All 100 people speak different languages. I say, where are you going? You are Chinese, you are, say, German, Mexican, Japanese, right? Spanish, Dutch, right? Portuguese, Tibetan, Hindi. Everybody here in their own language. Right? So this is the quality of the Buddha speech, right? He has to say one word. No need to say. In our case, we need to learn some English, and then we need to learn some other language, right? Buddha don't have to do this. So with 60 melody voices, he spoke all these things. Spoke thus in such a way, the instant such a reflection of the sage form appears in my mind. It soothes me. It soothes me, just as the moon rays heal fever's pain. Now, what happens is, with this, right? When I think of you, when I think of your physical appearance, when the physical appearance of the Buddha appears to my mind, or the way you spoke the divine origination, the manner that you spoke the divine origination, when it appears in my mind, then what? It appears in my mind. It says, it removes the pain. What kind of pain? It removes the pain. My pain is specified. What kind of pain?
I cannot hear the teaching.
Right. The teaching that he has not he was not able to found, that he was not able to hear directly from Buddha. So this pain, particular pain, is specified, just like the hotness of the scorching sun is hotness of the scorching sun is specified when the moonlight, when the rays of moonlight touches your body. So this is what it means. Okay. The instant such a reflection of the sage form appears in my mind, it soothes me. It soothes me what? My pain. It soothes my pain. Just as the moon rays heal fever's pains. Yeah? Got it? I think better stop here.
Maybe we'll finish in 2 weeks.
Huh?
Finish in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Almost.
our teaching is not that predictable. That's not that predictable. Life is unpredictable, so our teaching is not that predictable. It depends on the verse.
The discussion.
Oh.
Maybe we should,